The world has always run on invisible wires, threads of trust, power, and agreement, woven into what we call money. For decades, one thread has dominated the fabric: the dollarized system, a global monarch sitting comfortably on the throne of trade, supported by the silent but powerful nervous system known as SWIFT. SWIFT, the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication, is not a bank. It does not hold money. It does not issue currency, but it controls the language through which global banks communicate. It is the messaging backbone of international finance, like a global post office where every letter of value must pass through recognized channels. To be connected to SWIFT is to be heard. To be disconnected is to be silenced. But history does not freeze, it flows. And now, a new current emerges: the BRICS Bridge, powered by emerging mechanisms like Bridge Pay and the proposed R5 unit. A financial corridor designed not just as an alternative, but as a statement. A statement that the world no longer wants to speak in one currency voice, nor rely on a single messaging system that can be switched off. For Africa, a continent long positioned as a passenger in global finance, this moment is not just about payment systems, it's about position, power, and possibility. But every bridge connects and divides. Today, we ask, is the BRICS Bridge a liberation highway for Africa, or a new path into another form of dependency?
Strength of Africa TV presents
BRICS Bridge, a new global payment system. Africa's opportunity or risk.
Our story is not over, it's just begun. From Timbuktu to the streets of Soweto, Africa speaks and the world must echo. Strength of Africa, we stand strong. United, claim the truth, we break the wall. Up from the roots to the skies, we rise again. This is our voice, let the world hear when strength of truth.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are at this moment. I'm your host, Adebayo Oladokun, and this is Strength of Africa TV, where truth meets courage, where the past is reawakened, and the future of the motherland is reclaimed. So this episode is titled BRICS Bridge, a new global payment system, and Africa's opportunity or risk. Let's start with the conceptual framework of BRICS. BRICS is a group of 5 major countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. The name BRICS comes from the first letter of each country. The idea was first suggested by experts at Goldman Sachs, who believed these countries would become very powerful in the global economy. Over time, these nations decided to work together as a group to support each other's growth and have a stronger voice in world affairs. BRICS was formed because these countries felt that global financial systems, like the International Monetary Fund (IMF) and the World Bank, are mostly controlled by Western countries. They want a more balanced global system where developing nations also have power and influence. To achieve this, they created their own institution called the New Development Bank to fund projects like roads, energy, and infrastructure. They are also exploring new ways to trade and send money without depending too much on systems like SWIFT. The main reason people support BRICS is that it can give developing countries, especially in Africa, more options and more independence. It can help them trade more, build infrastructure, and rely less on Western economies. However, BRICS also has challenges. The member countries have different interests, political systems, and economic goals, which can make it hard to agree and move forward together. The future of BRICS will depend on whether these countries can turn their ideas into real actions that benefit the people and the world. Let's look at the old king, understanding the dollarized world. The dollar is not just a currency, it's an ecosystem, a language, a gatekeeper. For decades, African economies have traded through the dollar like merchants forced to use a single marketplace. No matter the distance, no matter the cost, imagine a farmer in Ghana selling cocoa to China, but first having to convert its value into a foreign measure, the dollar, before the trade can even begin at all. Each conversion is a tax, each transaction a toll booth. But beneath this system lies an even more critical infrastructure, SWIFT, the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication, which functions as the central messaging network that connects over 11,000 financial institutions across the world through an encrypted code called SWIFT code. When a bank in Nigeria wants to send money to a bank in Europe, it does not physically move cash. It sends a SWIFT message through the receiver's bank SWIFT code, a standardized, trusted instruction that authorizes the movement of value through correspondent banking channels. This is where power hides, because while SWIFT is technically neutral, its governance and compliance structures are deeply aligned with Western financial systems. This means access can be restricted, countries can be disconnected, transactions can be flagged, delayed, or halted. In practice, this turns SWIFT into a global switch. When that switch is turned off, as seen in various geopolitical conflicts, a nation can find itself financially isolated overnight. Combine this with the dollarized clearing system, and you have a double-layered control mechanism. The dollar as the value standard, SWIFT as the communications gateway. Sanctions, asset freeze, and forfeitures become not just possible, but systemic. Africa in this system has been like a trader whose goods must pass through a foreign language and a foreign checkpoint, where rules can change without notice. And now, a new route is being drawn. Now, let's examine the new route. BRICS Bridge, a new architecture of trust. The BRICS Bridge is not just a technological platform. It is a philosophical rebellion now taking form through practical tools like Bridge Pay and the emerging R5 settlement framework. At its core are the BRICS nations: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. But this is no longer a closed club. The expansion wave has brought in countries like Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates (UAE), Iran, Egypt, and Ethiopia, with many more including African states expressing interest. This is evolving into a global South financial alliance. So, how does it work? Imagine Bridge Pay as a multi-lane digital highway where central banks and authorized financial institutions connect directly. Transactions are cleared and settled without relying on SWIFT messaging or dollar intermediation. And now enter the R5, a reference unit built from the 5 core BRICS currencies: Real Brazil, Ruble Russia, Rupee India, Renminbi China, and Rand South Africa. It acts as a value benchmark, allowing countries to price and settle trade without defaulting to the dollar. Now compare the three systems. SWIFT is a messaging system. It tells bank what to do but does not move money itself. Bridge Pay is both a messaging and settlement infrastructure. It enables direct value exchange. The R5 is not a network, but a unit of account, a compass that guides multi-currency transactions. In practice, SWIFT and dollar equals indirect, controlled, multi-layered transactions. Bridge Pay and R5 equals direct, multi-currency, potentially autonomous transactions. This is the difference between sending a letter through a foreign post office and hand delivering it across a bridge you go home. But again, who decides the rules of this road? As of now, this is early 2026. The system is in an active pilot phase among the key members like China, the United Arab Emirates, and India. India currently holds the BRICS presidency for 2026. In January of 2026, the Reserve Bank of India, RBI, officially proposed placing the full linkage of BRICS digital currencies on the agenda for the 2026 BRICS Summit, expected in late 2026. The aim is to have the bridge fully operational for all 10 plus member nations to settle trade and tourism payments by the end of this year. Let's look at the promise, Africa's golden opportunity. If used strategically, the BRICS Bridge, powered by Bridge Pay and informed by the R5 model, could be Africa's financial renaissance. But before embracing the new, Africa must interrogate the old. The current international payment system has provided stability, liquidity, and global acceptance. It has enabled African countries to participate in global trade with a common standard. But this stability has come at a cost: high transaction fees, dependence on foreign reserves, exposure to external shocks, and vulnerability to sanctions and systemic exclusion. So, the case is double-edged. For the current system, it is stable, trusted, and deeply integrated, but it is centralized, politicized, and costly for developing countries and developing economies. Now, enter the BRICS Bridge. First, trade liberation, direct settlement reduces cost and time. Second, sanctions resilience. Transactions outside SWIFT and dollar networks are less vulnerable to unilateral interruptions. Third, currency sovereignty. Africa can trade using its own monetary voice. But the question remains, should Africa abandon the old system or strategically balance both? The wise path may not be replacement, but dual navigation, like a ship using both the old map and the new stars. Let's have a critical look at the shadow. New dependencies in disguise. Let us not confuse alternative with autonomy. First, power imbalance within BRICS. If the infrastructure of bridge pay and the calibration of the R5 are dominated by a few strong economies, Africa may find itself subject to a new center of gravity. But here lies Africa's untapped leverage. Africa is not powerless, it is under-coordinated. With over 1.4 billion people, vast natural resources, and emerging markets, Africa holds collective bargaining power that can shape the governance of the BRICS Bridge. If Africa moves as one through blocks, like the African Union and regional economic communities, it can 1. Demand seats at the decision-making table, insist on shared infrastructure ownership, and negotiate data sovereignty. And 2, she can shape the rules of transaction, compliance, and dispute resolution. Also, currency volatility. Without strong domestic policies, African currencies may still struggle even within a new system. Third, technological dependence. Africa must invest in its own digital financial architecture or risk becoming a consumer in a system it does not control. Fourth, strategic positioning. Africa must not enter the bridge as a collection of fragmented economies, but as a negotiating force. Unity is not just political, it is economic armor. Now, a look at the crossroads, Africa's strategic choice. Africa stands at crossroads, not between systems, but between roles. The BRICS Bridge with bridge pay and the R5 is an open invitation. But will Africa enter as a passive user or as a strategic co-designer? To maximize benefits, Africa must build interoperable payment systems, strengthen central bank collaboration, invest in digital infrastructure, and most critically, speak with one voice. Because in global finance, a whisper is ignored, but a chorus cannot be silenced. Africa must move from a continent of many voices to a continent with its unified position. A single negotiating front, a shared strategic agenda, a collective vision for financial sovereignty. Because without unity, even the most promising bridge becomes a path of fragmentation. But with unity, it becomes a platform of power. The BRICS Bridge is not just a financial innovation. It is a reconfiguration of global power, carried on the backs of systems like bridge pay and ideas like the R5. It promises a world where money moves more freely, less policed by distant powers, less vulnerable to sudden seizure, less controlled by a single currency or single network like SWIFT. But promises are not guarantees. The end of dollar dominance, if it comes, will not automatically mean the rise of African power. That will depend on choices. Choices about infrastructure, choices about unity, choices about whether Africa will finally own the roads it travels. Because in the end, a bridge does not define your destination. It only makes the journey possible. And Africa, for the first time in a long time, has more than one path before it. The question is not whether the old system is cracking. The question is, when the rivers change course, will Africa drift or will it steer? There is no single moment where the BRICS Bridge suddenly springs to life. No dramatic switch flipped. No global announcement that declares it is done. Instead, what we are witnessing is a gradual emergence. A system being built in motion, layer by layer, corridor by corridor. As of now, the bridge remains in its pilot and development phase, with 2026 widely anticipated as a soft launch window. A period where select transactions, digital payment rails like Bridge Pay, and experimental settlement structures begin to function in limited capacity among participating nations. But this is not full maturity. The true operational force of the system, where scale, trust, and global adoption converge, is more realistically projected toward the end of the decade, around 2028 to 2030. This is because the BRICS Bridge is not a single machine, but a complex ecosystem, interweaving central bank digital currencies, multi-currency settlement models like the R5, and new financial infrastructures that must first align across diverse economies. In essence, the bridge is not being turned on, it is being constructed while people are already beginning to work on it. And for Africa, the question is not whether the bridge is live, but whether it will step onto it early enough to shape its foundations, or arrive late only to follow rules written by others. I'm your host, Adebayo Oladokun, and this is Strength of Africa TV. If you found value in this conversation, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Endeavor to join our membership and give super thanks. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Rumble. For advert placement, visit us online at Strength of Africa TV. Watch out for the next episode. You don't want to miss it. Until then, tell your own story. Because Africa's future is written in African ink. Stay rooted, stay bold, stay African. Thank you for watching and see you in the next episode. Bye.
BRICS Bridge, a new global payment system. Africa's opportunity or risk.
Our story is not over, it's just begun. From Timbuktu to the streets of Soweto, Africa speaks and the world must echo. Strength of Africa, we stand tall. In our claim the truth, we break the wall. Up from the roots to the skies, we rise again. This is our voice, let the world hear when. Strength of Africa TV. Truth, pride, power, we are free. Tell your story, let your name be known. You are the seeds that the ancients sown. Not what they told us, not what they see, but what we choose, who we're born to be. Strength of Africa, we stand tall. In our claim the truth, we break the wall. From Timbuktu to the streets of Soweto, Africa speaks and the world must echo. Strength of Africa TV.